My name is Roberto Cruz. I'm the General Manager of Cognitiva. Our focus specifically is to implement cognitive solutions of artificial intelligence. I'm going to be talking about what things happen in business thanks to the use of cognitive technology. And I'm going to support myself on something that Dario said. If you are a marketing guy, things are easier. But it is also true that he's not a typical marketing person. He understands two things. He understands technology and the impact it can cause on business. And I think that's something that we should all have. If we come from technology, we have to understand the impact it has on business. And if we are in the business area, we'd better understand what technology is around, because most certainly that's where we will have impact. So what I'm going to be talking about is everything that has to do with cognitive disruption. Perhaps the most clearest example is the Kodak. You've all heard about the Kodak case? Please tell me, because I feel terribly lonely up here. Does anybody know the Kodak case? Yes, thank you. Now, Kodak case, apart from the details, taught us a lesson. Apart from saying how silly they were, is that they weren't that silly. They weren't trained enough to see what things were going to happen, particularly what things they created that they didn't realize. You know, they invented digital photography, and they were the ones who succumbed to their own invention. At that time, at Kodak, they had what we call going but not touching. That's what we know in marketing. If things went on and were moving, why would we touch them? And that was good for Kodak, but that's the case of many companies. We have to look over things that work out, and there are many things that show us that that's the case. There are companies that are far more recent that caused disturbance in certain industries, and they did not because they were competitive and new, reduced costs, or by using technologies, but because on the basis of the use of technology, they were able to position themselves in a way that industries were disarmed. Airbnb did away with the hotel industry because suddenly it showed to the world that you needn't own any rooms to offer accommodation. The same thing happened with Uber, for instance. Many of these companies are being successful because they found out that there is this scheme of lack of go-betweens or deconstruction of industries on the basis of the use of technology. And they use two things: technology and the fascination we all have individually to use technology, to be close to technology, and to get carried away by technology a little bit. We all have a mobile device, we all use it, we are in the social networks, so we interact with companies such as this one, and we make transactions. As a counterpart, these companies have a competitive position that is higher than the others, and they become global. And that's an important issue. And this concept that was developed by Dario in this, the Apis economy, the Apis economics is very global. It's very easy to think global things on that basis. Therefore, to talk about platforms, I'm going to use the examples I like the best, and that's Apple. I like Apple's example because it did not cause disruptions in one industry, but in many: computing, music, mobile, graphic design, etc. There were many disturbances from a clear leader who was Steve Jobs, and also a clear business model. I would like to focus on one part in particular, and it's that Apple fundamentally created a platform and continues being iTunes. Then Apple Store ended up being far more valuable than the hardware production business. Now, the reason for this is that it establishes a platform that in principle it's digital, but then it's market, where many things were happening that hadn't happened before. It was much more agile and transparent. It eliminated many asymmetries. So this question of the our technologies and API's technologies and API's economics is the economy of sharing. Do you know this question of coach surfing? Do you like to travel? Do you know what coach surfing is? Well, you make a sort of tourist peer-to-peer, people who travel and you go and sleep at their places. Sometimes what they lend you is a sofa, and that's where you rest or you spend the night. Now, the interesting thing there is that it changes an industry. Now, this question of peer-to-peer economics is mainly enabled by different technological models, and that's what I'm going to be talking about. Do you understand? Can you follow me? All right, good. Now, what happens with the information available? Dario showed you an exponential growth of the information available, and that's absolutely true. But I would like to underscore something, and that's the composition of information. 80% of all the data available in the internet is unstructured. It's not information that it's in business systems, and it's information that we generate to share with other people. These are photographs I take, messages I send, mails I write, clinical tests that I have made, and this has been digitalized. That's the case of music. Perhaps you recall that when we wanted to see photographs, we had them on paper. I mean, that's no longer true. Our experience has become more and more digitalized, and it's all the benefits of digitalization. But a byproduct of all that is that there are tons, 80% of, and the projection by 2020 is that 93% of all the information available in the internet is going to be unstructured. And that opens up an immense area of opportunities, and that is what happens with that information that is not systematized, that is not in an Excel, in a database, that cannot be approached with a traditional analytics approach, and that it has certain strengths in processing structures and data and figures, and that's where we have Watson. Now, how did Watson come up? Well, Watson was introduced in society in 2011, but it was created after many landmarks that at IBM they had developed. For instance, in 1997, beat a real chess player. Then it worked on various genomes, up to the human genome. Then in 2005, they started thinking about their next important challenge on which they should focus. And they said, well, why don't we use language as a place to study and to be able to interpret on that basis what we want to do? And that's interesting because language is quite ambiguous, unlike transactions or games or language is ambiguous. And so a project started that ended up in 2011 in a Watson program, competing in an American program called Jeopardy. Now, Jeopardy, in fact, it's a program of answers and questions rather than questions and answers. They would give you an answer with a little trick involved, a little malicious, but allows you to understand the meaning of the question. Now, what was interesting about Watson then? Well, the first thing is that it won. If it hadn't, I wouldn't be here telling you about it. But the truth is that Watson was able to understand the subtleties of questions and find things in a domain that was quite difficult, and that was Wikipedia. For artificial intelligence to study large volumes of information is not difficult, but the difficult thing is to understand the content. And that's what was born in 2011 when it won the last two Jeopardy champions. At that time, a new IT era started. Why? Well, because computing, IT went through, or is going through, three eras. Long time ago, we had specific purpose machines, social security processing, sensors, or whatever. Then we had programming languages at different levels where you can tell the computer what you want it to do. And you do it with growing levels of agility and accuracy. But then you know a certain language and you indicate the machine what to do. Now, after Watson, we started having something additional. You can have a language that understands Spanish, that's your language, and on that basis, because it understands your language, you can give it clear instructions and you can work with the system. And there's a very interesting point here in the various discussions and standpoints about artificial intelligence, the idea of cognitive systems as a way of artificial intelligence system, is that the concept is a space of collaboration between people and systems. Let's expand on this. In artificial intelligence makes decisions per se. Therefore, what does Watson do and what does it contribute to a human organization? Well, basically these three things. The first one is the capacity to understand natural language, that is, to understand the meaning of words, to understand syntax and semantics in a certain statement, and to understand the meaning of those words in a given context. It can establish then a dialogue with us, unlike other solutions where you can give instruction verbally, and then with Watson you can have some kind of conversation towards a certain goal, negotiation, eliminate a doubt, or build a marketing campaign, and you start doing things. Now, the second thing is that Watson can extract concepts. It interprets language, and it can conceptualize, and it can have some kind of understanding level that allows us to do something similar to human beings, to create new concepts and achieve inferences on the basis of existing concepts. This allows us to train things similar to an expert in a specific domain. You can educate Watson in a certain domain, in law, for instance, or, and then on the basis of Watson's education, you can ask questions, and Watson will give you answers. The third characteristic is that learning is permanent. It's an ongoing basis. Initial education, on the basis of initial education, Watson can continue learning, introduce new knowledge, or understand its uses better. And that's important. You have to think about Watson not only as an expert that gives answers, but also as a system that is able to understand not only the domain, but the users of of that domain to know where to get next. Do you understand this? Can you follow it? Good. So what's this idea about a collaborative working scheme? Well, this has to do with taking advantage of the capacities of each one of the participants. Now, on the one hand, thanks to artificial intelligence and machine learning, you can have Watson systems that allow you to learn. You can have possibility not only of learning, but doing it very quickly. And once you know something, you can give Watson volumes of laws. And so it's considerably faster than what we can do. And it's in an environment where, for instance, in medicine, and see how important it is to learn fast. In medicine, if you had a specialist in oncology, for instance, or a urologist 60 years ago, in the 50s, that doctor, that specialist, had to wait for 50 years so that the accumulation of information in his discipline doubled. Now, in that scenario, for that doctor, it was relatively easy to be up to date. He had to read certain papers per week or per month, and he would keep abreast of everything that was happening around him in his discipline. Now, the volume of information available in any medical discipline doubles every year and a half. Every year and a half. And projections are that by 2020, they will double every 73 days. So this means it's impossible, humanly impossible, to be up to date in everything that is happening in the field of medicine. We can't as human beings. But there is good news here. Watson can. Now, since Watson can, what's our role? Because Watson can be with us, giving us that knowledge. And there is also another characteristic, another feature. It's not biased, it has no psychology, it's not biased. So any recommendation or any answer that we get from Watson is going to be evidence-based. Now, what is it that Watson hasn't got? Well, it hasn't had ethics, it doesn't have moral, it hasn't got common sense, you know, things that, most of us do. Well, that's another talk that comes some other day. But we do contribute with that. We do have something that is here, Dream Digital. The possibility of dreaming things, visualizing things, it's on us. Watson can contribute a lot to that process while you consider this idea of collaboration between a man and a system. From my own standpoint, the conception of replacement, man, and so on, it's not very productive, apart from the fact of whether we can or not. It's not productive. And I think that this is a far more intelligent use, far more powerful use of the capabilities of people and systems. So I'd like to stop here and show you a video that's going to tell you about what Watson is, and then we carry on.
Every day, we think, invent, heal, laugh, explore, reason, share. Every day, we create poetry, equations, films, selfies, diagnoses, discoveries. A living record of our work, our ideas, and our aspirations. Capturing over 2.5 quintillion bytes of data, but 80% of this data is invisible to today's technology. We can't see it. We can't use it. IBM Watson can.
Hello, my name is Watson.
Watson is cognitive, designed to understand, reason, and learn. And everywhere, Watson is helping schools become cognitive, hospitals become cognitive, industries, professions, culture, products, services, and companies of all kinds are becoming cognitive. And when businesses think, we can outthink. Outthink complexity, outthink competition, outthink risk, outthink disease, outthink our biggest challenges, and outthink the limits of what's possible.
Welcome to the cognitive era. I'm here to help.
Now, in the era of knowledge, to have a system that provides you with knowledge and experience, I'm making a difference here. between information, that's what we usually ask from systems, and knowledge and experience, which is what we can achieve when we have a cognitive system and it takes advantage of structured and unstructured information. That's a terribly pertinent change. In the era of knowledge, to facilitate access of each one of us to knowledge is pertinent for our task. That changes our companies and our industries. And this is the key issue of the cognitive era. The cognitive era has a third dimension involved, and that's the way it transforms the economy. There is a cognitive era linked to this possibility that we do have at present of having an expert in our domain working with us. That's the new thing. And I'm going to tell you about some particular cases. And let's organize them in areas, because since you can have experts trying dealing with your own users or customers or your prospects with a far more natural way of giving information or making transactions or interacting with you in general terms through someone or something that knows you, or the combination between something and someone that is more powerful, more enriching, such as the case that he was showing you in his presentation. Now, the second option, or the second area of Watson's application of Watson, has to do with potential empowered agents. Let's say our companies can have a much higher capacity to make decisions or support users or customers if they have agile knowledge close by. Agile means that Watson can understand where you are, what you're doing, and on that basis give you the most adequate recommendation, instead of giving you 0.25 in 0.25 seconds, 100,000 articles, and well, over to you. And it also has to do with optimizing operations. If I could organize marketing campaign by fully understanding not only about what my customers do, but reading social network mails, analyzing the personality of my customers, and understand why they do things. Typically, just think that through analytics, we are able to know what's happening. This is quite common. Now, the interesting thing is that many times, to explain the behavior, let's suppose that we are at a certain segment and analytics determines that we've done a certain thing. Understanding why we've done it has to do with what we say, what our comments are. You know, I didn't go and have dinner there because this or that. Now, this is hardly found in analytics, but it's in a Twitter, in Facebook, in something we say. The why of things you can find, and that's why you can optimize things, and that's why you can optimize operations. Now, when you think about engagement, and this is the case, you have to think of the various channels that you have in engagement. Chat, voice. Chat, my recommendation is you have to think about it as a more prevalent element of communication and transaction. And as it happens in many countries, the use of robots to make engagement. Just imagine a very traditional use of robots in other countries is for electronic shops, where you typically go to buy a certain element, say an HD TV, and you ask the salesman, you ask the question to the salesman. Most likely, your question is a question that the salesman doesn't know. But you can have someone trained to answer the technical characteristics or compare technical characteristics of a product. That's not easy. That's not complicated, but it would take a long time to train an employee or a salesman. This is another case. This is the case of an online research assistant, legal assistant. Ross gives you legal advice. It studied laws and jurisprudence applied to civil law, and it gives advice to lawyers. And what's the value proposal? Not to replace a lawyer, but it's saying I'm doing this job of working things that are pertinent for you. very quickly. So it's very interesting to think how to define the strategy of a case. You still need a lawyer. Now, but you can have Watson doing all the research work that otherwise you wouldn't be able to do. If you don't resort to artificial intelligence, you cannot interpret the concepts in the legislation and jurisprudence. That's the case of Ross. If you apply this to banking, you can set up virtual consultants in very complex areas such as foreign trade. As you know, foreign trade is quite a complex discipline because there are many regulatory, legal, credit issues involved, but it's possible to train Watson around those domains, as we call them, as complex as those, and to give assertive answers to the type of transactions or foreign trade operations that you want to do. So that's another case. And I'm choosing cases from different industries. Some of them are more traditional, like the banking industry, others such as a law firm. And that's an important thing, because when you talk about experience and knowledge, there is no industry that is left out of the possibilities of finding an app that can truly be powerful. Let me show you another one in a different area, and that's the film industry. Morgan is a terror film. It hasn't been shown in Argentina yet, but the interesting thing about this film is that the trailer was made by Watson. You have to understand natural language, but Watson understands sounds and images. So we gave Watson the possibility of studying terror films and understand and study trailers and to see what the effect is in a trailer so that people watch that film. Now, on the basis of studying, it's about 500 films, Watson set up this trailer of Morgan. Now, to tell you the truth, there is someone in the kitchen making the final production, because, by the way, Watson made a far longer trailer, 4 minutes, and I think this trailer is 2.5 minutes. But there is someone there. There is a collaboration between man and machine in non-traditional areas associated to artistic production, where a cognitive system can give an artist or a producer some judgmental issues that would have taken a long time. And I've got another example that I like to use quite a lot. That's Carolina Corcova, not because of her. I have her in my heart. It's a relation that has lasted a short while. Now, Carolina Corcova has a dress on, and it's Marquisa's dress. That's relevant, but it's not. Marquisa, this was a gala at the Met this year. At the Met Gala, you get all the fashion personalities. I couldn't attend it this year, but well, Watson worked with Marquisa, the fashion house, and they created this dress. What did Watson contribute with? Well, it gave Marquisa designer some elements about colors and about prevalent designs in the various Marquisa collections. And it would give them hints. The designers took up that input and generated the design for this dress. And then Watson added certain legs with different types of color. So what did this dress have? Well, when you saw Carolina Corcova go by, and Watson in the hashtag was analyzing the feeling or the tone with which people express themselves, and according to the tone would change the color of the dress. And you say, well, how funny this is. They don't have anything better to do, these people. I mean, but it's interesting how you can change a product on a permanent basis according to such a subjective variable us feelings of those who are watching it, not only of the one who is wearing it. I don't know if this is sustainable in fashion. I don't know. I mean, it exceeds my knowledge, and anyone knowing about this would probably tell me about it. But it's quite interesting of having this idea of what you can do with a product that was typically considered unmovable and fixed once it's produced, on the basis of using cognitive technologies. And so I've given you this example so that you can have this idea that we are building disruptions. And the concept of building disruptions has 4 dimensions. One has to do with technology. Cognitive technology is available. It's an open platform. You can use this app is free of charge up to a certain volume of consumption, and they are basically cognitive features. That means well, extracting concepts, make translations, understand images, make a trade-off analysis, analyze structured data, the traditional one, let's say. This technology is available for all of us, and we can combine it in the same way we can combine it with as if they were building blocks in our solution. Now, where's the key element of a digital disruption? Is it with the availability of technology? Well, not only that. In many of the cases we've seen before, Kodak, Facebook, whatever. Well, the technology is available for everyone. But there were other additional elements that had to do with the user case, where you are going to use this technology to get you where. How are you going to monetize this? Why has it got meaning for me and for all the stakeholders involved? And so you need a leader. You need someone who sees this. You need someone that when he sees this, he says, oh, I'm going to do it. In my job in Cognitiva, I meet many people who are either leaders or want to be leaders. And our discussion is very interesting because from our side, in Cognitiva, we can help quite a lot about the things on the right-hand side of the screen. We can use them, we can make them use technology to scale it a long time, to define benefit cases, what are the important and pertinent things. Now, what you have to put in has to do with leadership. I would like to end with this, and I thank you for your time.